And today I will be presenting you my notebook on the 911 emergency calls made in the Montgomery County of Pennsylvania. So as we know, the 911 emergency call system is a vital part of the public safety infrastructure in the United States, as it provides immediate assistance to those in need. Through the data analysis here, my aim is to identify the trends and the patterns that can be used to enhance the emergency response planning and improve the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the emergency services. So the data set which I have used is this one, which is found on Kaggle. And in order to perform my analysis on the trends and the patterns, I have just used the column of timestamp here, and I have used the title columns. I have used only these two columns in my these two attributes in my notebook. So I first came up with some made up insights. Man, my first made up insight was that traffic would be the most common emergency type of services, followed by medical and fire. And my second made up insight was that the weekends will have more 911 emergency calls as compared to weekdays, because people tend to have social events and they engage in outdoor activities. And this data set is spanning over the years 2016 to 2019. So in order to test my hypothesis, I came up with like a heat map here and a bar chart just to see the trends and the patterns. So as we can see here that, like, on weekday from Monday to Friday is where lots of emergency calls have been made as compared to the weekend, which is completely opposite to what I had assumed. And my second insight was that, as we can see, that at 5 p.m. or 17 hours here on weekdays, where we have lots and lots of emergency calls being made as compared to any other hour during the week or the weekend. And like at 5 p.m. is the one where the lots of calls made only on the weekday, Monday to Friday. On a Saturday or a Sunday, similar trends were not seen. And my third insight was that in the early morning time, that is like this part from around 12 or 1 a.m. in the morning to like 5 a.m. in the morning, on a weekday there are very very few emergency calls being made. So that is something which is really interesting. Like these are some of the interesting insights which I was able to find in this. And also, if the user can see like specific insight here, so if we click on any given type of the emergency, we can see that for a given emergency, when are the calls made, what are the trends and the patterns. Like as we can see, for the fire we have lots of calls made on the weekends, also. And if we see the for the emergency medical services, or if we see for traffic, so we can see something like this. And by default we are only showing all of these services combined together. So for this data set, my target audience is like all the emergency service providers, like, so they can respond to the people's need, and they can provide the help as and when needed. And also local and state government officials, so they can allocate funds and resources, and, like, they can take necessary steps. And the public health organizations, so that they can use this insights to run campaigns and programs to prevent these emergencies. And the general public, in order to spread awareness to them. So on this data set I had performed the data abstraction, that is the what, where we are describing the data set type, the attributes used, the availability, the time frame, and the source of the data set. And then I had in order to test if my made up hypotheses are correct or not, so I had performed the task abstraction, that is nothing but the why part. So I came up with some of the task abstraction just to see if my made up insights are correct or not. And as we saw that my made up insights were, like, not correct as compared to the actual trends we saw. And as we can see, like, and then I had performed the marks in the channel, that is the how part. So I tried to use the channels depending upon the type of the attribute, if they are categorical or ordinal or, like, quantitative. And I tried to use the channel which satisfies the effectiveness and the expressiveness principles. Like for the heat map I use the color saturation, then horizontal position, vertical position, and even for the bar chart I had used vertical position and the horizontal position. And in order to find some better insights in this data set, I tried to do some visual exploration. So first is like just to see whether there are any given trends in the start of the month or end of the month. So this is like user can select the year, and they can select any of the month, and they can see are there any trends or seen, okay, or whether start of the month or end of the month, are there lots of emergency calls made for a specific month or an year, just to explore some peaks, just to explore some peaks. Then second is like a bar chart, just to like see whether during the start of the year or during any given week or any given day or quarter or month, or how are the trends for the different types of emergencies being used, whether it's like for a given quarter lots of emergency calls are made during the start of the year or end of the year. Then I try to go with an area chart just to summarize, just to find some trends and insights, whether across the day, whether is it like during the start of the day or the middle part of the day or the end of the day, any specific type of emergency services most frequently used. So accordingly, it can help the target audience. And my fourth idiom was like a stream graph, just to like see the trends and the patterns of like for a particular type of emergency services, how are the uh, calls being distributed across the day. So as just to like showcase here, okay, for a given time period, how are the different type of emergency calls being distributed, whether for a given time frame there are lots of emergency calls being made for a given type, or I be it like traffic or a fire or emergency medical services. And the last is nothing but like a heat map, just to analyze some trends, like such as like for a given year, whether like across the years, as we can see, are there lots of 911 calls being made during the time of like spring or during the time of fall, or like during the start of the year or during the end of the year, just to find some such type of interesting insights. I came up with the heat map. Uh, but for my needs, I think this is for this visualization is what satisfies the requirements the most, and it gives the most better insight as compared to all of them. And I had also performed the data abstraction here by using um, data in JavaScript here, where I had taken out the necessary columns and I had processed the data in a way which supports the visualization. Thank you.